I'm bringing the cake back.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to cost me for you to wear as well.
I find it
What? Nothing. I said nothing, man. I said nothing. Nothing I could say to. I beg your pardon. No. So, I guess you're all wondering why I called you here.
Was it to share a Coke with us? Oh, he's got Monique. Awesome. You know the story about Monique, don't you?
No.
Okay, there's an ad on TV, drink driving one.
Monique thinks so.
And the thing is the guy goes into this whole argument about not telling his friend not to drive home. And one of the whole arguments he has is because Monique will think he's dumb.
It's really funny.
It's brilliant. If you get a chance, we'll do it again.
Yeah, see it. We had, so.
The drink driving
I've got
ad.
to spend some more time watching television.
I will let that come in next month.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not going to sit like that. Only that door sits like that. So, I'm probably not going to sit at all. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, like I need a microphone. So, why are we here?
You called me. Jared just guessed.
I was just thinking that.
Steve just did the same reaction that you just did.
Why we never have open flames on the set. The whole place could go up. So, watch me go over backwards. Okay, what is it?
It's a boy thing. It's a tip for the boy, sir.
Especially when I have to wee look.
Hey, it's good fun.
So, a lot of you look like you've been in car accidents since yesterday. Everybody okay?
Cocktail party. Yeah, cocktail party's good.
Yeah. So, what are we doing here? Anybody got anything?
Oh, did you want to pimp your book at all?
What's that?
Do you pimp your book?
Do I want to pimp my what?
Your book.
Your book.
My book.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I got a book. You guys know about my book. Yeah. I meant to bring, if I had been, like a really prepared kind of person, I was going to bring some cards or handouts or something, but give the website where you can get signed copies of my book, which was a lot easier than packing a whole bunch of them and bringing them, because they have weight requirements on luggage. If anybody's interested in a signed copy of my book, you can go to www.lifesthatway.com. All one word.
Can you spell that?
Spell that? Lifesthatway.com. No apostrophe.
That's all I heard.
That's not what you heard.
Don't worry.
Okay. Anyway, so.
What was the writing process like for that?
Well, how many of you have read it?
Probably
Jeez
true.
Louise. Well, actually. Well, it wasn't written to be a book. It was a nightly email to friends and family during this difficult time that I and my family were going through. And so the writing process was, we had these really long, horrible days, and then I would sit down for an hour and a half every night and write an email to everybody about what was going on. And then even after things got to be not so not so much requiring a daily report, I ended up kind of journaling the experience through that means. And so that's really what the book is. It's a journal of that year. But it's written day by day while experiencing it rather than looking back on it. So, and it really became something far more than I expected it to be. And the response from around the world has been astonishing to me and very gratifying. And a lot of people have said some really amazing, wonderful things to me about it. So I'm grateful for that. And if you get a chance to read it, well, I hope it will be a positive experience for you. So.
Just seeing the way that you interact with Maddie on Twitter is just, I can't help but want to say you're just an amazingly wonderful dad, and Maddie is so incredibly fortunate to have you as a father, especially with everything that you've gone through.
Well, you know, if she didn't have me for a father, she wouldn't be here, so I figure that's pretty fortunate. Yeah, my kid is, she's pretty amazing. I mean, everybody thinks their kid's amazing, I think. Probably Mrs. Manson thought Charlie was amazing. So cute. He makes so many friends. No, she's a pistol. I think there's a halfway decent chance she's going to invade Poland. Yeah, you know, one of the things I regretted, but had to, was a certain amount of added weight was my wife's general attitude toward life, which was my way or the highway. And now I have a daughter who feels the same way. So it's fun, but I don't have to wait. She's 11 and pretty much, she's let's just say she's an advanced placement student.
Did she have a good birthday in August?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what we did. It was whatever it was what she wanted. Because my birthday is exactly a week before hers. And so for her birthday, she said she wanted to do whatever she wanted to do. And just, I'm going to tell you everything I want to do and we'll do that. Okay. And for my birthday, the week before, we did everything she wanted me to do.
Did she dress you up?
Yeah, she told me that for my birthday she was going to give me a makeover. She did. I'm sort of nervous to say that there are photos on Twitter somewhere. But anybody looking at those photos will know that I love my daughter a lot.
Is she still like sleeping in the cupboard?
No, you know, it's funny. She had this big deal where she decided to build her own little house in the hall closet. And she brought all the stuff she owned, and she made a bed and pillows and brought books and food and never once slept in there. But it took us about 3 days to build it. And then she lost interest, which is that's pretty much how I got through high school. Plan, lose interest. So, you know, she hasn't slept in there yet. So I think she's forgotten about it. So, yeah.
What do you think about the fact that your dad gets paid to dress up?
Oh, hi. What?
You're telling her she used to go to school and do her homework, and you get to like dress up and make believe.
I keep telling her it's hard work. I keep telling her that's how she gets an iPad. She's like, oh, I don't want to. She's, every year when Supernatural got picked up, she was like, tell the writers you don't want to do it anymore. Because she doesn't want me to leave home. Yeah, and I'm like, tell the electric company you don't want lights anymore. So, yeah. Yes?
What's your favorite part of your job, just in general? Not
What?
just the acting part, but in the lifestyle that you have to lead around being an actor.
Well, actually doing the acting is my favorite part. I mean, it's a lot of the, it's really kind of life is kind of broken down into three areas. You're either doing your work, you're laying around doing nothing, or you're looking for work. And looking for work is, I don't care much for that. Looking for work as an actor is more fun than looking for work as a garage mechanic. But they call you up and say you got to go to the other side of town, and you're playing an alien who looks like a potato, and you have to prepare for that. Okay, what would a potato do in this situation? And you go over there and you wait with a bunch of people, and half of them are dressed like fish and chips. It's kind of stupid, but I like laying around doing nothing. That's yeah. I mean, you don't make any money laying around doing nothing, but no. My favorite part of acting is being on the set, being on the stage, and doing it, and being in that moment where you're I was talking to somebody the other day about, somebody was asking me about acting, and they use the expression, you go in and fake what the emotions and stuff. I said, no, you go in and you go in and tell the truth. You conjure up that truth for yourself. You're not faking anything. When I played those scenes in Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid where I was going to have to kill my zombie wife again, I think people who sell cars don't have to use that expression very often. You get into it, and your body doesn't know it's not real. So if you're playing a scene where you're in despair, or if you're angry or crying or whatever, you spend all day with your body feeling that way. Even though your brain knows, this is all, I'm playing this off the paper. Shot fired. So it can be intense. It can be, I would go home from that episode in particular and be utterly exhausted and just want to fall on a bed and cry because my body felt, I kept it at that place all day. And, but there's something really fun about that. There's something really fun about getting into getting into a character's life so much that you feel what they feel. And I just think that's fun, and it's not necessarily easy, but it's at the end of a day like that, I can be completely drained, but I can be completely satisfied with the day, which is a lot different than if I spent it cleaning up the house. I don't know if that makes sense. Yes.
So when Bobby dies and then all the stuff that happens after, did the writers talk to you about that ahead of time, or did you just get the script and go, wait, what?
No, let me see, we shot that toward the end of October of 2011. They called me in September and said, we've got good news and bad news. They said, the bad news is we're killing you. The good news is the script's so good you might win an Emmy. Like, well, could I get paid even after I'm dead? No, that was part of the bad news. So yeah, I knew about it, but at the time they said, but you'll be coming back at some point. And so I said, okay, well, I'll be dead for a little while. But then when we were shooting the episode, they had this big surprise thing where they brought the whole cast and crew together and they told us it was a safety meeting about where the fire exits were and all that stuff. We have to have those every year. But it turned out to be this big, lovely video tribute to Bobby and his whole career. And it was all very weepy stuff, you know. And I felt like I was at my own funeral. And except that if you're actually at your own funeral, you don't have to get a job the next day. But when they did that, I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to be gone more than I thought. And but then, you know, there was more for Ghost Bobby, and then season 7 was over. Who knows what season 8 will bring? So I ain't telling.
Where did the whole Yeti story come from to cover up your return as a ghost?
That was fantastic.
Well,
That was awesome.
you guys know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. You know, I was off about, I forget how many episodes I was away. About 10, maybe 8 or 10. And I went back to Vancouver to shoot Bobby's return as a ghost. And for some reason, I get recognized on the street more in Vancouver than just about any city I'm ever in, probably because people are halfway not surprised to see me there. And I thought, whenever I'm in Vancouver, almost every time I go outdoors, somebody will say, oh, it's Bobby, hi. Which doesn't happen in Los Angeles or most other cities I go to. For some reason, it happens a lot in Vancouver. And I thought, the minute I step foot outside, somebody's going to see me and they're going to go, Jim's in Vancouver, Bobby must be coming back. And I thought, that's going to ruin the surprise, because somebody will tweet it, and pretty soon everybody will know. And I thought, I've got to come up with an excuse for being in Vancouver that isn't supernatural. Fortunately, they shoot a lot of stuff in and around Vancouver, and I just decided that I would tell everybody I was making this movie up in the mountains north of Vancouver. And then people said, well, what's the movie? And I said, it's up in the mountains in the snow, it's about the abominable snowman. So what's the name of it? Oh, they haven't actually, right now it's just the Untitled Abominable Snowman Project. But the producers are arguing over it. And, you know, like everywhere else in life, the more lies you tell, the more you gotta tell. But then it started kind of being fun. And then I started posting photos from the set. Thank you, Google Images. Because I was just Googling film crew snow. And all these pictures were coming back of various film crews around the world shooting in the snow. And I was copying them and pasting them into my Twitter account. And I had so much fun. I mean, I posted 2 pictures of me that weren't me. And nobody caught on, because it was pictures of guys with icicles hanging off their eyebrows and covered in snow gear and stuff. I said, oh yeah, that's me. That was the second day on the set. And boy, it was really cold. Blah 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 blah. Blah. And I thought my crowning achievement was the picture of the frozen toilet. Yeah, you know, I find a picture of some guy walking through deep snow. I go, oh, that's our location manager. He forgot his clipboard and he had to walk all the way back to the truck. Baloney. What was really cool though was that, as far as I know, nobody picked up on the fact that I was actually back shooting Supernatural, which I was very happy to see meant that when Bobby showed up, it was a big surprise. And I think that probably was a lot more fun for everybody than if everybody said, oh, Jim's shooting Supernatural, so Bobby's coming back, and probably, maybe this episode, I really like the idea that nobody knew. I hope nobody knew, because it was way cool when everybody found out. So, that was my abominable snowman Yeti, Betty the Yeti. Somebody online made a poster for Betty the Yeti. It was pretty cool.
Speaking of the whole Bobby's death and everything, what did you think of the part of the script where they burnt down Bobby's house?
First of all, over the years, a lot of people have asked me if I had ever considered writing a script for Supernatural. And I broke into writing television, and I'm not, it's too much work. I didn't really want to do it. And so whenever people would ask me, I said, no, I'm perfectly content to let the writers do it, and I'll just show up and say my lines and try not to pop any furniture. And then, around the end of the 6th season, I started thinking, well, you know, I've been on this show for such a long time now, I know it really well, it might be fun to write one. And I knew that the producers wouldn't pay attention to it. I knew that they knew I had written before in my career, and so I started tossing around ideas about what would be fun for me to play and what would be fun for me to write. And I started putting a story together, started putting a script together, and actually had a whole story outlined and was writing scenes. And the entire episode took place in Bobby's house. And while I was writing, I got the script that said, Bobby's house burns down. Back to the drawing board. And then I started thinking, okay, is there some way I can take this really cool story and make it work not in Bobby's house? It's going to take a lot of revision. And about that time, they said, Bobby's dead. At which point I said, okay, forget it. So, yeah, I was not happy when they burned down Bobby's house because a lot of incredible, probably Nobel Prize winning stuff just went right down the drain. Yes, you're looking a little grayer than you did yesterday.
If you could choose any other way to die in Supernatural,
If I could choose any other way to die besides getting shot in the head, Michelle? Well, you know, it's funny. I was right after we did that. I was doing an episode. I was doing several episodes of a show called Justified, and I asked the writers. I asked one of the writers what they had planned for the character. Was I going to be around for a while or what? And he said, "Well, we think you're going to be around for a while." So, you know, I said, "Okay, well, if you decide to kill me, I already have 2 bullet holes in the same place, so you might want to use one of those." So far they haven't used it, but yeah, 2 series in a row getting shot in the head. If I think if they were going to kill me on Supernatural, I'd have preferred extreme old age. Yeah. Yes.
I'm a big fan of Deadwood.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. one thing I really like about it is the sets and the design and stuff that went into it. How elaborate were the sets on Deadwood?
Except for the fact that most of the food and meat and carcasses and things you saw on the street were not actually edible. I'm not saying they were fake, they just weren't actually edible. Because some of them were carcasses that had been there for some time. Except for that, you could do a pretty good job of living in that town. It was so real. Where it was not so real is that only a few of the buildings that you saw from the outside had complete buildings inside. So if you walked into the gym saloon, once you got about 4 or 5 steps into it, there wasn't anything there. And the interior was on a soundstage a few hundred yards away. Some of the buildings, the Bella Union Saloon was pretty much same inside and out. You could, they could take a camera, shoot a scene, walking down the street, walk right into the Bella Union, and there would be the craps tables and the stairs and everything. But in the hotel set, the dining area and the hotel desk were all real, but you went upstairs, there wasn't anything up there. So, I mean, that's fairly typical for everything. I mean, the stairs in Bobby's house on Supernatural don't go anywhere. And in fact, in Death's Door, when we finally saw the upstairs in Bobby's house, I was like, wow, why haven't we been up here before? Because this is a great room. But it was on a stage elsewhere. So there's a lot of that kind of thing because it doesn't pay to build fully realistic buildings. But on Deadwood, an awful lot of what you saw was very realistic. The hardware store was real. I mean, to the extent we didn't sell hardware, but first big movie I ever did was a thing I did with Bruce Willis called In Country, and we were shooting on location in Kentucky. And the designers and the director had found a diner, restaurant, cafe, in this town that they thought they really liked the look of it. But they couldn't take it over because these people had to make a living and they didn't want to close down the diner. So they built an exact duplicate of it on a corner elsewhere in town. And our first day of shooting, in the middle of shooting, a semi-tractor trailer truck pulled up. A guy got out, came in, sat down at the corner, and ordered a hamburger. Completely oblivious to the fact that there was a film crew with lights and flags and microphones and no waitresses and no kitchen. Completely oblivious. And the first AD walked over and said, "Sir, this isn't real, we're shooting a movie." He said, "The sign said it was open." Yes, it's open, but not for food. So, yeah, sometimes it can be very deceiving. But, yeah, the Deadwood set is pretty awesome. I mean, a lot of it's gone now, but, I mean, it was a standing set before we ever came there. You can see that set in other movies and other shows, but all of the decoration, all of the stuff piled in front of the buildings and stuff, that was all us. So. Did I get to keep any props from Deadwood? Or I used to keep props from plays I was in sometimes, but I wanted to keep my hat from Deadwood. And they were like, "No, man, it costs like $1,000 to buy that from the movie company." Come on. And then about 6 months later, I found out they gave everybody their hats except me. So I like my hat. But props, we don't really have, in neither show did I really have a lot of props that I felt kind of tuned into. I suppose if we hadn't melted it, I could have asked for Bobby's flask, but of course they had about 30 of those lying around in case the first melting scene didn't work. No, I did steal something from Bobby's house. A little ceramic frog for keeping scrub brushes in. And then as I was leaving the last day of Bobby's house, Jared came up and gave me these 3 brass owls that had been on the windowsill in the kitchen. And he said, I thought you ought to have a souvenir from the house, man. I'm like, okay. And I got these 3 brass owls that weigh about 40 pounds. And I didn't tell him I already had a frog. But now I got all of them, so, yeah, there weren't a lot of props that I felt like, oh, I gotta have that. Now, I occasionally would start reading one of the books on Bobby's bookshelves and not finish it until I got back to LA. I'm sure that's just a loan. If they want it back, they can bring Bobby back. Yes?
Did you film any more Breaking Bad?
How many are you aware of?
Just one so far?
I've done 2.
Okay.
I've done 2. I did the second episode of the 4th season, and I did the first episode of the 5th season. I don't know if I'll be back. They don't have much left to shoot because they're wrapping that series up.
Was it nice shooting someplace warm?
You know, it wasn't all that warm when I was there. It was, well, the last time I was there it was, but the first time I went to Albuquerque to shoot, we were in the middle of shooting, and then there were none. Is that the episode where with the worm in my ear and all that stuff? Yeah. We were shooting that. And I got hired to do this one scene in Breaking Bad in Albuquerque. So I had a couple of days off. They let me fly to Albuquerque and shoot that scene. And then There Were None was the episode where the entire cast and crew was deathly ill. There were 45 of us with the flu. It was awful. Jared is the only person who didn't get sick. Bastard. I mean, it was bad. There were guys going to the hospital, and I almost had pneumonia. And the day, it worked out kind of well because the day I shot the whole worm thing in Bobby's ear, and he's taken over by the creature, and I had to do this other voice. I had a different voice. So that was kind of cool. And then I flew to Albuquerque for the weekend and shot this one scene. And my voice was really kind of like this. I was really having a hard time talking. But it didn't matter for Breaking Bad because I'd never done the show before. Nobody knew what this guy sounded like. Flash forward a year, they bring me back to play the same character, and I'm like, oh God, what did I sound like the last time I did this? Because I don't sound like that now. Yeah, it was winter the first time I did it. It was cold in Albuquerque. Albuquerque is like pretty high elevation, and yeah. So I forgot what the question was.
So what are you working on at the moment?
I'm just sitting in front of you guys. I'm going back to work on Justified in a couple of weeks. So I don't know for how long. People get shot on that show, so who knows. It's not like doing Family Ties. Almost nobody got shot on that show. So yeah, that's the only thing I've got lined up. I have at least 2 or 3 more episodes of Justified, and If I'm still alive after that, probably more. But that's all I know about it.
We could always hope for more Yeti movies.
Yeah, well, you know, the funny thing is, if somebody told, one of my friends said, you know, it'd be really cool is if you got hired to do an Abominable Snowman movie now. Nobody would believe you. Oh, he's coming back to Supernatural again. Cool. No, man, I'm actually Abominable Snowman movie. Yeah, right, yeah.
You're trying to save up to get one. Like, people trying to sign up for it.
Are we serious?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm serious.
See, I'll do a Kickstarter campaign. Raise money for an Abominable Snowman movie and not quite have enough. Oh, God. So why are you guys here?
If it was possible for Bobby to have a relationship with either Samantha Ferris's character Alan Harvell or Kim Rhodes' character Sheriff Jodie Mills, who do you think Bobby would choose?
Jodie.
You think?
Yeah.
Is that because that's what you want, or because?
She was hot for it. She wanted it.
Yeah.
She was.
In that alternate scene they had
so
with
disappointed in
Alan
his
was
flesh fiction.
cooking dinner for Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me see. I mean, it's a difficult question. You got a broad with a gun and a broad who can cook.
You could take both of them, Jim.
Huh?
Bobby could take both of them.
Reason!
It's not a fundamental moment.
You, that script I told you I was working on.
It turned
The opening
50 shades.
scene. The opening scene was a slow pan across the floor of Bobby's bedroom. As you see various items of clothing. Then the camera comes up the side of the bed, and there you see Bobby. Oh no, we're not talking about real life here. There you see Bobby in bed with Ellen and Jodie and Karen. And then, and they all look very tired. Except for Bobby. And there's a knock on the door. There's a knock on the door. Bobby gets up and goes downstairs to the front door and opens the door, and there's Sheriff Rhodes saying, "I gotta talk to you." That was the opening scene. You'll never see it.
Can we have a copy of the script?
I
Is that
said
pre
it to
or
you. Pardon?
Is that pre or post zombie Karen?
You gotta wait till the episode comes out. So, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to answer that question because Kim Rhodes is married. And Samantha isn't. And, so, you know, you have to take into account these complications when you're talking about who you're going to be working with.
No holds barred.
Pardon?
No holds barred.
Yeah, well, all's fair in love and war, but people have been known to show up on sets and kill their wives' lovers. So I'm gonna plead nolo contendere on that. Bored stiff, aren't you? Any more questions? Yeah. Great hat. Yeah.
It didn't mean this
The
time.
one with a hat.
I made it myself. When you first started doing more publicly, more famous things, how did you adjust to dealing with people recognizing you? That kind of thing. Is it weird or is it
It's kind of weird. I mean, it was really Deadwood that was the first thing that happened. I mean, I worked a lot before then, but I was never the kind of guy people went, oh, look, it's, because when most of what you do is a guest shot on this show, a guest shot on that show, people don't make the same kinds of identifications with you then as they do when you're on something every week. So it's only been in the last 10 years that I've had much of that going on. Even with Deadwood, it didn't happen very often. Once in a blue moon, somebody would say, oh, you're that guy. No, you're not. But with Supernatural, it really kind of took off because you guys are nuts in a very good way. But I mean, also, I before Deadwood, I had never done more than about 13 or 14 episodes of a show. I did 35 of Deadwood. I've done 54 Supernatural episodes. That builds a certain recognition factor in among people who've seen the show. But people who don't know the show don't know who I am. You know, I don't. For the most, it's starting a little bit because Breaking Bad and Justified are fairly popular shows, and people every once in a while somebody says, "Oh, weren't you on Breaking Bad?" I'm like, "Wow, I can't believe somebody noticed." But it's still surprising. I'm not used to it. I grew up as a fan. When I was a teenager, my bedroom was covered in autographed photos from people you probably never heard of.
Bogey.
No, Bogey was before my time. I was only 6 when he died. But gave it away there, didn't I? But I was very well tuned into what it was like to kind of freak out if I saw somebody I recognized from the movies. And so I understand the feeling. I'm just not used to it being applied to me. And I mean, it's gratifying. And now, I've been doing conventions and things like that long enough that it doesn't surprise me, but it surprises me. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like, really, me? Okay. I'm grateful, but I don't quite get it. And yet I do get it, because I know the show's got a huge following, and I know the character is well loved, and so it's weird. It's, part of me is going, they must be thinking of somebody else. And part of me is like, oh yeah, they really like that guy I play. So.
Well, so far this weekend, I think you probably signed the most out of any of the guests.
You think?
Yeah. The line was massive for you.
It was almost as long as 18
So we're getting money
You got a
out.
live wire on your head.
Everybody was getting money out for you, Jim.
That's the best line I've heard all weekend. Well, I'm sure part of it's because I haven't been to New Zealand before.
Well, so
I haven't gotten out of the
you
airport.
haven't been here before either.
Well, I mean, I've been to conventions recently where my line wasn't that long. Like, why did they invite me here? But those are usually places I've been 3 or 4 times before. So, after a while, you can get tired of even me. But apparently it hasn't happened in New Zealand yet, so I'm grateful.
What was your first ever convention experience like?
It was a complete surprise. It was in Orlando, Florida, and they brought us in. It was in a hotel. They brought us in, and it was a room set up like this. It was, and there was a curtain here, and they brought us in behind the curtain. So I hadn't seen the audience yet. I hadn't seen any of the fans. They were all waiting there for us to arrive in the room, seated. And they said, okay, we're gonna, when we call your name, come out through the curtain and you'll say hi to the fans. It's the opening night. And I said, okay. I thought we were gonna go through that curtain and there would be like 12 people there. I just figured supernatural and you know, nobody knows me. Okay, sure. Oh, they want me to come to Florida. Wow, I wonder how they can afford that. Because plane tickets. You know. And I walked through the curtain and it was like Elvis walked through the curtain. It was not a huge convention, probably only about 400 people, but they went insane.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I literally, I mean, I'm not being coy or exhibiting false modesty. I was astonished that they even knew who I was, much less were excited. So, yeah, that was very cool. That was very surprising. It took me a while before I got used to that. And yeah, it's weird. It's fun, but it's not something I really had grown to expect. I mean, it's kind of, I guess I expect a positive reaction when I show up.
I kind of want to
But-
ask
yeah.
the chance to
What?
respond
What?
and Max.
Stop arguing.
Okay,
What?
okay.
Do it.
Last year when Mark was here, my son asked a
Which one?
question. No. I want to let him know what Mark's response was so he can give the right reply.
Shepherd?
Mark Shepherd. My son, because these two were giggling and Mark said, I've got to ask this question. My son asked Mark, have you ever had a boner on set? Mark's response was, not during the Jim Beaver kiss. And how old are you? So I just thought that I would like to give you the opportunity
To reply?
express. Let's just say, you know.
Well, then it must have been a gun in his pocket.
Well done.
Cold.
And on that high note, Kiwi fans set the bar so low.
Oh, no. My first convention, you asked me about that. The first convention I went to, one of the questions in the Q&A was, which body part would you prefer to have stapled to a board?
Well,
Your tongue. Okay, I think I'm
Thank
getting the hook
you.
here.
Yes, thank you very much. Can I give a round of applause for Steve Beaver?
Thank you. See you tomorrow, guys. Somebody left their Coke here.
Jim, which one to give you this?
Oh, cool.
And the other one Kiwi.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Cool.
Thank you for coming
Thanks so
out.
much. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jim.